I thought it would maybe be too pompous of me to kind of answer the questions myself, so I crowdsourced them. So I have a
Awesome.
text chain that I sent a bunch of my friends, my wife, and everyone else. I'm like, what would you say I'm amazing at that is not marketing or this or that? So
So third party verified.
yeah, exactly. So I mean, I could say I'm great at this, but then my wife or my best friends would say like, you're absolutely not.
I know
So
this guy, and that's actually not accurate.
exactly. So I have it pulled up over here. So all right. So well, instead of going verbatim, I can, but I think it all comes down to emotional intelligence. So,
Mm.
for instance, my wife says I'm really good at diffusing conflicts at work or with business partners or with friends and things like that, or handling tough situations at a restaurant or something like that. I know how to listen to people. It's very heartwarming. A lot of people just said being a dad.
That's nice.
Turned red definitely for that. I also heard fashion. I don't know if I would have added that,
Okay,
right?
I will
Um,
buy that.
thank you. But ultimately, I think I had to boil it down and look at everyone's summary. It's like just emotional intelligence.
And so is that so for listeners who don't know, so we start off the show with two different questions. One is what are you good at non-professionally, and what are you good at professionally? So is that a professional, non-professional, or is that a little bit of both?
It would be a little bit of both,
Uh huh.
definitely, but it's something that I bring personally, and I 100% carries over, and it's 100% part of what I do professionally as well.
And so let's just dive in here. So
Yeah,
what? So you're in your life as a marketer. What does emotional intelligence get you? What is it? What? How is that a superpower?
sure. So when it comes to marketing, everyone thinks that the idea is the most important thing. And while ideas are obviously important, or everything I'm going to say is part of the Olympics, right? It's just first, second place, third place, so on and so on. You have to have discernment to pick the good ideas, but then you have to know how to execute the ideas. But even before that, you need to go ahead and sell in the ideas, sell into the ideas to the stakeholders. So if I was at an agency and I came up with an idea, I need to sell the idea internally, and I also need to sell it to the client. Once we have approval from the client, then we need to go ahead and actually rally the teams and make sure that people are behind you. And that takes conversations, that takes persuading people, that means aligning interests, and that is all emotional work. That is not any kind of hard skill like send someone a deck. No, it's how do you create the deck? What's the most important thing to the audience and things like that.
Very interesting. Is that? Well, so can you give me like a concrete example of like a time that? Can you give me a time that worked really well and a time that maybe it worked less well?
Sure, sure. So
In
time.
either order you want to present.
Oh no, perfect. I'll give you a time that it worked really well. So I actually have you may know I have the first ever Guinness World Record for the most likes on a Facebook post within 24 hours, and
Which was
it was literally we're gonna go for a record. Please like this post. That was literally the post for Oreo.
I this is not because I wanted to talk about the Oreo cookie tweet, of course,
Yeah,
but this was not that you're saying.
that was not that. That was 3 years prior to. You're referencing the Oreo blackout tweet, which
Yeah,
happened
yes,
about
yes, yes.
3 years later. Yeah, so this was or two to 3 years later. This was in 2011. We decided to
Okay.
go for the first ever social media record for the Guinness World Record, and we ended up getting it. But
Amazing.
when I first initially pitched that idea, everyone around me, and I was pretty junior within the agency or new within that agency at 360i, everyone around me was like, oh, it'd be cool if we then had people dunk in Times Square, and then what if like we sent it up to space? And I'm like, no, 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 that's not the idea. That's not the idea. Right? I had to explain my idea over and over, which is okay to different people. And I had to think about like, what do they want? What do they need to hear for me to go ahead and be able to make this happen? And every person that we talked to was a different conversation. Every time we ran into a different obstacle, I had to think about how to deal with the human aspect of it and how to deal with the emotional aspect of it more than like the hard skills of it. Like, what's the budget? What's the timeline? That's all easy, right? Dealing with the human component is the more complex part.
And what is that? Is that you don't want to hurt people's feelings? You want to make sure they're excited? Like, what's the?
I think ultimately it comes down to listening and empathy
Uh-huh.
and not talking as much. So asking questions, leaving space, and once people tell me their concerns or things that they're excited about, making sure that I am responding in a good way. I wouldn't say positive or negative because it could be something that they don't like, but it's how I deliver it. I used to take a class, and I used to have actually a lot of my team members take a class called active listening. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're familiar with active listening, it teaches you things like this. So to explain it, it's some of the basics would be if someone's answering a question, when you go to answer them, repeat the question back to them, right? So, oh, Abe, what you're saying is X, Y, Z,
Right.
and that shows them that you understand. The other thing would be to, in your own head, while they're answering the question, don't be thinking about the answer. Like really, actually listen to them.
Don't think about how you're going to rebut. Just say
Exactly.
like, okay, they are saying what this person is saying this, and then when you say back, Leo, I just heard you say X, Y, Z.
Exactly.
Then you can say that because you actually were listening and you were there
Exactly.
and you were with them.
Exactly. So it's a lot of like mindfulness, presence, kind of things, and then not ignoring people's feelings. It's so easy to ignore it, or your own personal bias might be like, oh, that's not an important thing, but it might be an important thing to them, right? And acknowledging that.
Right.
So
Right.
you could have conflict and there could be friction, but it's on how you do it.
And just sorry, I really love how you said it's even if it's not important, it's important to them.
Exactly.
And if you need to work with them, then it doesn't matter what's important or not important. It's what if it's important to them, it matters for getting this thing done.
Exactly. And I think there's like, you could be hard, and sometimes as a boss, you do need to make decisions. Like, I heard you, this is great, we're going to go in this direction. But if
Right.
you heard them from the very beginning, they might disagree, but they'll be on your team and work with you. If you're flippant about ignoring their own concerns or the things that they're asking about, they're not going to bring their full selves to work.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. And this is great. I mean, this is much bigger than marketing. This is everything.
Totally.
This is management. This is
Totally.
managing up. This is dealing with your kids. It's everything.
Everything. And I'll tell you, Abe, I fail at it every single time. So it's funny that even my wife is the one that said that, because I'm like, I fail at it all the time, right? But I think it's like, I like to say like sharpening the pencil. I'm always sharpening that pencil, trying to get better, but I fail at it all the time.
So what's one thing you learned? Like, if you think of like an example where you failed at it, give me like one thing you learned where you're like,
Yeah.
oh, next time I'll do this differently.
Yeah, that's interesting. The first thing that came to mind, I won't mention the person or the place that I worked at, but I had a team of about 5, 6 people at the time, and we were dealing with a very tough client. And I went around the room asking people, like, what do they think we should do? And it actually backfired on me. Like, everyone just started fighting amongst each other, and this one person was like, hey, this is your job to decide. This is not my job. Right? And I thought I was being empathetic and I was bringing everyone together, but that particular person got really angry and took it as if I was not making a decision or not being supportive or something. And that struck me, like, because it was kind of like I wasn't the art versus the science. I was doing the science, but not the art, right? Like, ask questions, bring people in, right? Like, I was being too mechanical about it and not really reading the room and the dynamics. And after that, I was like, oh shoot, like, obviously I know it's both, but like, I can't just like go on autopilot and be like, ask this question, because then it's going to come inauthentic. And looking back at it, I probably was being inauthentic. Like, maybe I was rushing it and I already had an answer, but I was asking the question anyway, and they probably knew that, right? So this is now about 10 years ago or so. So you can probably guess where I was, but at work. But
wait, just give me a rough description of the person in the room. And I think also, just in terms of empathy, like, it sounds like this person, what he really wanted was to have you be the person to guide him.
Yeah.
Or it was a him.
Right?
So like, so like they wanted you to be the person to guide them. Like, it was like, and so what you weren't picking up on was, they wasn't like, you have a feeling to this, like, their decision was, I don't know, like, Leo, tell me what to do.
Exactly. And part of that is like, A, knowing your team, B, knowing your team, and then knowing how you need to change your own style. Don't expect other people to fit your style, because there might be people that always want to share. There are people that don't want to share. And I think that's perfectly fine. But I got to manage those people differently.
So do you think, because when I think of marketing, I think of, the first thing you do is, don't start with you. Don't start with the product.
Audience.
Start with, okay, what's the customer profile? What does the customer want to hear? What does the customer think? And it's a good marketing is very empathetic.
Yes, 100%.
And I'm wondering if this sort of approach to people is also made like, does that carry into your creative?
Totally, totally. Uh, I realize that it might be somewhat my superpower, and not everyone else may have the same as me, and that's totally fine and perfect, and actually what makes this beautiful and makes great work happen. Sometimes I look at things about, like, let's say, how to respond back to a consumer or how to share something, and I try to find the quickest way there, the most pragmatic way, because I'm like, they're just humans. Like, how would I explain this to Abe right now? And that's probably how I should probably communicate to marketing, right? Sometimes marketers, and myself included, like to add to it or make it a lot more complex, or if it feels too easy, it feels like it's wrong. But it's funny, sometimes the easiest message is the best message and the easiest path forward.
Right. I'm thinking of two gurus you probably follow is Emma Stratton and April Dunford.
I actually don't know these.
Oh, they're fantastic. They're like I just consume everything that they create. So Emma Stratton is a positioning expert.
Okay.
I'm sorry, messaging expert, and April Dunford is a positioning expert.
Oh, fantastic.
And so Emma Stratton's whole thing is just don't like overcomplicate it. Just talk to your friend at a barbecue, and that's like how to sell the most complex software.
Yeah.
And April Dunford has many smart things. But I think it's her. One of the things she talks about is she hates the customer sort of the customer profile.
Yeah.
She's like, don't think of like you can have your amalgam whatever, but your amalgam shouldn't be, Dapper Dan who likes to go shopping. Who it is Leo, and Leo is this person because you want to talk to a person. You don't want to talk to a concept.
Yeah, like you said, amalgamation. Yeah, I absolutely. I don't follow these folks, but I will after this because I absolutely love those things.
They're in the show notes. So.
Okay. Oh yeah, fantastic. The other thing is what's interesting to me. I don't have. I've definitely read a lot of business books, but it's not like really what like I lean towards. Like I look at myself like here's some books that I might have here. This is a fantastic one, like nonviolent communication. I don't know if you heard about it.
Cool.
But,
you're excellent. You're the second guest who recommended that book, so now I'll
really?
have to go and
that's fantastic.
So I'll have to go and I'm doing it.
I have that. I have this, which I actually wrote a whole article about. Lying. It's just like lying's bad. Period. White lies, big lies, all lies are bad, and kind of like some of the philosophies I follow. And I'm telling you, these two books with a bunch of other like psychology kind of books have really helped me throughout my whole career. This was very polarizing.
Was it really?
Totally. I've written articles on it, and I've actually given salons or spoken at salons about it, and it's a very interesting one because it's all about like not lying, period. No white lies, no nothing, and it's quite fun conversation to have with folks.
Interesting. I will definitely have to read it. So you started getting into like just there's books you've written like, but just talk to me about how if you're a terrible you have your EIQ is like negative 100, right? So like what would you recommend for like folks to get up to speed?
Yeah, look, there's always opportunities to engage with folks, whether it's that you're buying a coffee at Toastmasters, at your religious center, whatever it is. There's always opportunities to have different conversations, and I think those are the best areas because you could fail easily. And I think failing quite often is most important. I don't want to sound like a broken record of like, failing is good, it's positive, it's great, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to sound like that person, but I like there's, I guess, a Buddhist concept of like always starting again. You always have the ability to start again. Tomorrow's a new day. Every second's a new day. Just because you made a mistake doesn't mean that you failed or anything like that. And I think the most opportunities you can have are just like day to day, like talking to someone on the phone, right? Talking some the barista, whatever it may be. Just focus on that, and then it'll be so easy for you to do it at work.
It's a muscle.
It's totally a muscle, totally. And you're gonna fail, and I think that's okay. It's just like if I was on a diet and I cheated one day, that doesn't mean my diet is ruined. Right? I could then choose a different meal the next time. Right.
And I love that sort of embracing failure specifically for empathy or specifically for emotional IQ because it makes everything real. It's like, because I think a lot of times, for me anyway, like when I walk into a situation, everything fails. It's because I have to be this and I have to present this. And like, no, you're just a guy. Right. And like, and we're all screwing up together when that's fine. That's cool.
Totally. And like, I have all these books and I talk about
Go
this.
for it.
But I fail all the time though. Like I'm constantly failing, right? So like the line one is a really interesting one. So the we don't have to go too deep if you don't want to on the podcast or anything. But
Yeah, no,
say
but yeah, go for it.
that all the book throws away like big lies. Obviously, don't lie about like I have a mansion, come over my house. That's obvious, right? But it's like small lies, like what you might say to your partner, like, "Oh, that dress looks nice. Oh, those shoes look nice." Whatever it may be, like even eliminate those things. And I fail at that all the time. Like, so you'd be like, "Oh, Leo's a liar," but we're all liars in a sense. Like, someone might show me something, I'm like, "Oh, that looks great," and I'm like, "Wait, I was just not being mindful. I was just kind of like moving through the day or getting to my next thing." The key is now me stopping and being like, "Abe, I actually just moved too quickly. I don't like those glasses." Or I wouldn't say it like that, right? I figure out a different way to say it, but like maybe a different pair of glasses will look different or better fit your face or whatever, right? So it's going back and then being like, I made a mistake, which is what I try to practice, which is the hardest thing for your ego and the hardest thing to do just related to anything else. So back to the whole bringing it back, landing the plane, is like, I will not be empathetic. I will constantly not really validate someone's feelings. But then I try best to go back and be like, hey, Abe, in that meeting before, I just wasn't my best. And I apologize.
That's so interesting.
It is difficult.
Why? Saying you screwed up? That's so easy.
I don't know. Maybe it was the way I was.
I was totally kidding. That's very hard.
Yeah. And I don't always do it either. Sometimes, like, I decide, like, what's worth doing it, right? Or I have, like, my curve of enthusiasm kind of moments. I'm like, should I go apologize? Did I do that? Like, should I not? Then I'm like, they probably didn't even notice. Did they notice? Right? And I'm like, yeah.
And what I'm also hearing about lying is that it's not, because when I think of lying as like, before we had this conversation, is lying is bad because there's like, you should tell the truth, and that's it.
Sure.
But when I'm hearing about lying, that brings it back to emotional intelligence, is lying is, I'm not there with you, and I'm not there with me.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of making this facade that I completely invented, and that's completely ignoring both of us.
Yep, you got it. Yeah. And then what can I trust, right? Like, some people might be like, if you lie here, you're going to lie somewhere else. So like an example that I have in an article that I wrote is like, I've been where managers would be like, I lie for the team. I'll do anything for the team to like protect you, right? And they'll lie to different people within the organization to protect you. So they were really good. But what if I got a promotion and I wasn't part of their team anymore? Is that person always lying? Can I trust anything they say? No.
You don't know.
Right? So things like that. Like, it goes as far as like the author of the book, like, don't even lie about Santa. There are people that feel upset that their parents lied to them about Santa. Like, if you lied to me about this, what else did you lie to me about? It's extreme, but
interesting. I'm going to read the book.
Yeah,
sounds fascinating. Yeah. That's wow.
Sorry, I feel like I took you on a completely different tangent.
No. This is great. This is really perfect. I know, but because it all gets back to, you're approaching work as this way to connect with people authentically.
Totally. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head.
And that means listening. That means being honest. That means being truthful. That means showing up. That's all these things. And so I'm going to ask maybe a controversial question.
Please.
There's a great title of Seth Godin's, one of his books is All Marketers Are Liars, right? Like,
yeah, sure. Yeah.
So like, how does that change? Like, what would you tell to brands when you're thinking about like, how do they create their messaging?
Sure.
That sort of bringing the bringing the emotional intelligence one level up to at scale to many, to all their consumers.
I think this is absolutely easy. You actually answered the question a few minutes ago. So there isn't this big segment of an audience. It's just one person. It's Bobby, Jenny, Abe, Leo. If they were sitting right across from you, what would you tell them about this product? And do that. And if you're leaning towards lying, you lied to them once, there's no opportunity to lie to them again. Or now all of a sudden lie to them and then all of a sudden start telling them the truth. They're not going to believe you. So deal with it the very same way you would deal if that person was right across from you.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I love that. Yeah. And I'm thinking of another thing. Sorry for just bringing it.
Don't be sorry. I absolutely love these conversations.
But one of the things she talks about when you're positioning your company is don't think about it in terms of a matrix of, don't think of it as us versus the competition and we're better than the competition. think about it as you are really good for a specific target, and you are the best thing in the world. And once you figured out your target, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And everybody else in your field is good for a different target. So your goal is to be able to, when somebody calls you up and this says, "Should I use your company?" to know, okay, if you fit this profile, absolutely yes. I'm going to tell you why. If you don't fit this exact profile, we're both wasting our time, and I should send you somewhere else.
Yeah, I love that.
But if you understand who you are and who your customer is really, really, really well, you don't have to make things up, because you've already figured out, like, yeah, they're better at those other guys are better at us for A, B, and C.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter, because you're you and you're not that other company's customers.
I love that you went here, because I used to teach people active listening. I used to teach them about not lying to, and this is a group of salespeople. And I would say that you should do it, and I do it because of ethical reasons. But if you don't do it because of ethical reasons, it still actually makes business sense.
Right. Because?
Because if you lie once, you've eroded that trust, right? If you're a salesperson and you're trying to sell something to someone and you lied once, you can never call that person again. So if you're a mass marketer selling a cookie or whatever it is, and you lied about a recall, you lied about an ingredient, how do I trust that all these ingredients in the future are actually good for me now, or truthful as to what you're putting in there?
Right.
It goes on and on. So telling the truth just makes sense, period.
Yeah. I like that a lot.
Yeah. It's interesting. But again, we get, I think it goes into, and I'm not the first person to say this any means, but like, it's nice versus being kind. We don't want to tell someone that they have something in their teeth because you feel like you're being mean, right? But then I look at it as like, I'm being a bad friend. Why would I let my friends go with something in their teeth to a date?
Right.
It's actually being really bad. And the same kind of thing if I'm answering, a communication for customer service or developing copy. Like, why not go with the truth, right? People are going to believe you and trust you and be part of you, even if you mess up.
I like that. I like that a lot. That's really good. So I'd be remiss if I didn't. So you've told me about the Facebook. And you got the world record?
Yeah, it's an interesting story that we could go into now or at a later time. But so we decided to go for it. And what's funny is there was already a picture this is real, a picture of like Vin Diesel like flexing that had like millions and millions of likes on it. But because he never actually went for the Guinness World Record, it's not like randomly given to people. We decided to go for it, and within like 6 hours, Lil Wayne said, "I'm going to go for it too," or his people said, "I'm going to go for it too." So we hit it, and we got 114,000 likes on it. But then Lil Wayne completely destroyed us. But because we did it within a 24-hour period, we started it, got it, then he beat us about 6 hours later or whatever it was.
Oh no! But for those 6 hours, what's the record now? Do you know? Like, I feel like that's
no,
like,
I don't know what the record. It'd be like, yeah,
it's probably in the many millions.
Definitely, it's like Taylor Swift or some sports person.
That's yeah. So you have to go back and like beat out Taylor Swift at the
totally. Yeah, and I would say it could be like even multiple millions, because on Oreo we could easily get like hundreds of thousands, like back in it, like after this, like years
back
later.
In 2011 when all this stuff was super new.
Yeah,
right,
totally,
right.
Yeah, totally, easily.
So and then tell me about the Oreo in the dark tweet.
The Oreo blackout tweet. So what's funny is you can't actually have the Oreo blackout tweet without having the Guinness World Record and like building that team, building that muscle to doing things in real time, reacting on social media, getting buy-in from different clients and different people internally. But to explain what it is, about 3 years later, we were in a war room. So for those of you who don't know what a war room is, basically just a room where we're all working together on one particular mission, in this case, the 2013 Super Bowl. And all of a sudden the lights went out. And we were just there tweeting about regular things.
The lights went out on the field?
In the field, yes. Thank you for that. The lights went out in the field, not in our room. No one would care.
It's like, oh my God.
Yeah, exactly.
We can't see our desktops.
Great marketing. They still tweeted in the dark. Yeah, that's funny. So yeah, the lights went out in the field, and we all looked around the room and were like, we need to tweet about it. And we tweeted about it, and it ended up going ridiculously viral. So people started talking about how fast Oreo was moving, how incredibly creative they were, being able to create content and post it. And it's now actually probably one of the most polarizing tweets in the world because it won a Cannes. I have a Cannes line for it. I have a Clio for it, and the whole team does. Right, that everyone was in the room, not just me. But people were like, "Should a tweet win an award like this?" Right? Like, and there's also people that beat us. So I think it was Tide, Calvin Klein, and a bunch of other folks that actually tweeted faster than we did.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. But I feel like, so first of all, even just getting something out is not, it's not a race to the finish line. It's the most engaging creative. That's the
Totally, but it's also the most important. How recognizable is the brand and how many people follow it
right
initially, and
right.
also
well, everybody's got their tailwinds.
exactly, and then PR behind it, right? Like I think, as you know very well, PR professional, like who could get it to the most important influencers faster, and
Yeah. That's I wonder have tweets, because I feel like that controversy made sense when Twitter was like, what is this? I don't know how to understand it, but I can't imagine something on Twitter or TikTok or being not part of the, like people poo pooing something because it's on social media today.
yeah, it's gonna happen. There's not gonna be any more like now everyone does real time marketing,
Right.
so it's not novel anymore. It was novel back then for us to be able to move so
Right.
quickly.
Right.
Because there are still some brands that work this way, but like on Oreo, I'll give you this would actually cement it a bit more. The whole story is that I would know in like July what we're going to be posting for New Year's. Like that's how much we planned out content. Legal had to look at it. Brand
Right.
managers needed to look at it. Account people needed to look at it. But because back to like the whole authenticity thing, we built trust with the client. The client actually was in the room, so they were able to okay it. But there wasn't a lot of iterations because we knew the client well. The client trusted us. We knew how to move fast. We knew our team, and we just like worked like a well-oiled machine, and we were able to get something out super fast.
But I love that, because had you just been a bunch of talented people, like to your point, bringing back to the emotional intelligence piece, they would be like, I'm not trust. Like this is
No.
one of the biggest brands in the world. I'm not, and this
Totally.
is we're probably mostly young.
Yeah.
Like I'm not giving my brand to a bunch of 20-year-olds.
You got it. I think you bring a good point, Abe. Like it's like I've seen so many great ideas. I've worked with some of the most brilliant people, a bazillion times smarter than I could ever be or will ever be. But just the ideas fail because they're not trusted advisors. They're not putting themselves in the other people's shoes. It's just like, this is a great idea. Period. That doesn't help anybody. It works sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But
right. You have to have that trust.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool, Leo. Thank you so much. This has just been a fantastic conversation, and I'm so happy. I'm happy we're connected again, which is
same.
And thank you for being on the show.